If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartfelt journeys like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Never did I imagine I would find myself here, gazing out the window with a steaming cup of tea cradled in my hands, the memories of that night flooding back as vividly as if it were just yesterday. Yet, there are moments in life that etch themselves into the very fabric of your memory, remaining as vivid and charged with emotion as the day they unfolded, no matter how much time slips away. At 62, I had settled into a life devoid of thrills, where the notion of excitement felt like a distant memory, and surprises were mere whispers of a bygone era. At this point in life, you believe you've witnessed everything, particularly after nearly 2 decades spent in the same company. My job lacked the allure of glamour, yet it offered a sense of unwavering stability. In the bustling heart of Chicago, I found myself navigating the high-stakes world as the executive assistant of Alexander Carter, the formidable CEO of a renowned publishing house. He was the kind of boss that commanded respect, not through demands, but by exuding a quiet authority that captivated those around him. He exuded professionalism, a master of control, never allowing the boundaries between business and personal matters to waver, remaining steadfast in his resolve. Until that fateful night. It began with an innocuous email. "Shall we gather for dinner tonight? This one's on me. There's something crucial we need to talk about." My brow furrowed as I stared at the screen, the message demanding my attention, pulling me in for another round of scrutiny. Daniel never extended an invitation for dinner. Yes, we frequently toiled late into the night, occasionally calling for food to sustain us in the office, but this time felt distinctly different. An invitation had arrived. Declining was my first instinct. After all, what could be so crucial that it demanded secrecy beyond the confines of the office? Yet, the pull of curiosity was too strong to resist, and in a heartbeat my fingers danced across the keyboard, crafting a response before doubt could take hold. "Absolutely. At what hour, and in which place?" His reply arrived in a heartbeat, as if the air itself had crackled with anticipation. As the clock struck 7 in the evening, the world outside began to shift into shadows, the air thick with anticipation. Le Jardin Secret. My eyelids fluttered open. Le Jardin Secret was no ordinary restaurant. The city held a hidden gem, a quiet, elegant restaurant with soft lighting and a timeless atmosphere. In a dimly lit room, flickering candlelight danced across elegantly set tables, while a pianist in the corner wove a tapestry of soft jazz notes that floated through the air. The menu, a secretive treasure, beckoned with exclusivity, demanding reservations made weeks in advance. A peculiar, unsettling energy coiled in my stomach as I gathered my belongings that evening. Could this be related to work? A promotion? A promotion. That was utterly baffling. I had reached the pinnacle of my ascent. Perhaps a tantalizing retirement proposal awaits. But then what could possibly draw us to a place like that for dinner? As I stepped into the restaurant, my heart raced wildly, a tempest of anticipation swirling within me, far beyond what a mere dinner should evoke. The hostess guided me through the dimly lit room to a hidden table by the window, where Daniel sat, anticipation etched on his face. He stood there as I drew near, his sharp suit impeccably tailored, yet an unsettling change lingered in the air around him. A palpable tension crackled in the air as he adjusted his cufflinks, the swift movements of his hands betraying an undercurrent of anticipation. He smoothed his tie with deliberate precision, each gesture charged with an unspoken urgency. "You look absolutely enchanting tonight," he murmured as I settled into my chair. I chuckled softly, dismissing the praise with a wave of my hand. My deepest gratitude. I pray this conversation doesn't revolve around my quarterly reports, as I was yearning for a reprieve from the relentless grip of spreadsheets tonight. He let out a low chuckle. Yet there was a flicker of warmth in his eyes that I had never seen before, igniting a spark of curiosity within me. "Absolutely not. This isn't about work. Not completely, at least." The waiter glided over with a bottle of wine, and before I could utter a single word, Daniel had already summoned my favorite Chateau Margaux, the anticipation hanging thick in the air. A wave of unease surged through me, twisting my stomach into knots. What gave him that insight? The conversation began with a playful air, rich with laughter and tales from the office that danced between the mundane and the memorable. But as the night deepened, an undeniable tension began to weave itself into the very air surrounding us. A palpable tension hung in the air, elusive yet undeniable. At last, with the plates removed, he leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a hushed whisper. "I have a question for you, and I hope you don't feel any pressure to answer. I seek your unvarnished truth." I held my breath, a silent agreement passing between us as I nodded, the weight of the moment pressing down like a storm on the horizon. For 20 long years, I had stood shoulder to shoulder with Daniel. He was more than just a figure of authority in my life. He was more than just a friend. He was a part of my very soul. The thought of him departing created an unsettling emptiness deep within my chest. Yet, that isn't the reason I summoned you here. He halted, his gaze piercing through me with intense scrutiny. For years, I've been consumed by visions of what life will be like once I finally step down. The more I ponder this transition, the clearer it becomes that there's one person I cannot bear to leave behind as I walk away from that office. A tightness gripped my throat, as if a heavy weight had settled there. In the dim light of the room, a name echoed softly, lingering in the air like a whisper of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Daniel. As he reached for my hand, he gently held my hand, his touch warm and reassuring my feelings for you, Victoria, run deeper than mere admiration. My heart is tethered to yours, more than I ever intended. He released a low, amused chuckle, his head shaking slightly in disbelief. Until now, I kept my silence, unwilling to step over that fragile boundary. Yet, as I gaze into the future that stretches before me, a profound truth settles in. I cannot bear the thought of those years unfolding without you by my side. My mind whirled in a chaotic dance. Before me stood my boss. My boss, a pillar of stability and professionalism, always poised and never crossing the line. He sat across from me, his gaze intense as he spoke the words that sent a shiver down my spine. He cared for me. "I understand this might come as a surprise," he said, his grip on my hand tightening ever so slightly, "and I realize you likely never viewed me in that light. But I must share this with you, for if there exists even the slightest possibility that you harbor similar feelings, then perhaps we can finally stop the charade of maintaining merely a professional facade." I parted my lips, yet silence enveloped me, as if the very air had stolen my voice. At the age of 62, I found myself standing at the precipice of a new chapter in life. For a long time, the idea of romance had lingered in the shadows of my mind, untouched and unexamined. Following my divorce, I plunged into my work, believing that those chapters of life were now closed forever. As I sat there, gazing into the depths of a man's eyes who had stood by me for 2 decades, a profound realization washed over me. A wave of disbelief washed over me. Flattery washed over me like a warm tide, but it was more than that. A chill ran down my spine, a deep-seated fear gripping my heart. Because buried within a part of me I had long avoided, I realized he wasn't the only one who had been wearing a mask all these years. My gaze locked onto Daniel, my heart racing wildly within my chest. The world around us began to close in, its vastness fading into an oppressive silence. Silence enveloped the room, heavy and suffocating, as his words fell like stones, each one a reminder of the gravity of our situation. "My feelings for you run deeper than I ever expected." I swallowed hard, my fingers trembling beneath his caress. What was I supposed to say in the face of something like this? Daniel stood at the edge of the precipice, the wind howling around him, carrying whispers of secrets long buried. His heart raced, each beat echoing the weight of the choices that lay before him. The world below was a tapestry of shadows and light, a realm of possibilities waiting to be unraveled. With a deep breath, he took a step forward, ready to embrace the unknown. I found myself at a loss for words, my voice barely a whisper, betraying my uncertainty. "You don't have to say anything right now," he said gently, his eyes brimming with a deep understanding that seemed to pierce through the silence between them. Victoria, the weight of my silence has grown unbearable, and I can no longer hold back the truth that has been burning inside me. Moments stretch and bend, a relentless force that shapes our existence. That word hung like a heavy fog between us. At 62, I was not a woman who indulged in fantasies of grand romances or whirlwind affairs. My life had woven itself into a tapestry of routine, each thread predictable, steady and safe. In the heart of an exquisite restaurant, the man who had been my colleague for 20 long years leaned in. I withdrew my hand, craving the distance to gather my thoughts. Daniel, I never imagined you could be seen in that light. You've always held the reins, guiding me as both a leader and a companion. I know, he murmured, a faint, almost melancholic smile playing on his lips. Perhaps the blame lies with me. Perhaps I should have revealed a deeper side of myself to you long before now. With a heavy sigh, I reached for my wine glass, seeking solace in the familiar weight of it, a distraction from my restless hands. You caught me completely unprepared. This is overwhelming to absorb. I comprehend. He nodded, a silent sentinel, neither pushing nor demanding, simply biding his time in the stillness of the moment. But reveal one truth to me, Victoria. As you ponder the moments beyond the confines of your job, do you ever pause to reflect on the essence of who you truly are? His words pierced through the air, not out of malice, but with an unsettling honesty that cut deep. When was the last time I truly pondered my own happiness, my own deepest desires? 15 years had slipped away since my marriage unraveled, not through a thunderous betrayal, but through a subtle, silent separation that crept into our lives like a shadow. My ex-husband had found a new love within 2 short years, while I immersed myself in work, convincing myself that I was perfectly fine, that I needed nothing beyond what I had built around me. For the first time in years, a voice broke through the silence, asking me what I truly desired. I hesitated, my voice trembling as it slipped into a mere whisper. Daniel reclined in his chair, his gaze piercing through me as he scrutinized every detail. Perhaps the moment has come to uncover the truth. I released a long, measured breath, my head shaking in disbelief. What if I discover that I'm not prepared for this moment? What if I simply can't? His lips curled into a sly, knowing smile, hinting at secrets untold. Then I will embrace that decision. Whoa. Wait. What will bring in war? Yet, a nagging feeling whispers that what awaits you is far from what you expect. The waiter approached, the check in hand, and before I could even grasp my purse, Daniel had already taken care of it. As we prepared to depart, his hand found its way to the small of my back, a gentle touch. Warm and unwavering, an unexpected shiver coursed through me, igniting a spark of unease that I couldn't shake off. I don't want an answer tonight, he murmured, his breath visible in the chilly Chicago air as we stepped outside. Take a moment to truly ponder it. I nodded, my mind swirling as if I were lost in a fog, each step heavy and uncertain. I will, he smiled, his gaze lingering on mine, a heartbeat stretching into eternity. Sleep well, Victoria. Sleep well, Daniel. That night sleep eluded me, slipping through my fingers like sand. I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as the echoes of dinner danced through my mind, each moment replaying with vivid clarity. His gaze pierced through me, a silent promise lingering in the air. When he uttered my name, his voice wrapped around me like a warm embrace, igniting a fire within. My body, traitorous and unyielding, responded to his touch, my pulse racing as his fingers brushed against mine. I found myself leaning in, drawn closer to him, unaware of the magnetic pull that had taken hold of me. Had I genuinely never considered him from that perspective? Or had I buried it so deep within myself that I could no longer bring myself to face it? As dawn broke, I stepped into the office, the air thick with anticipation. I craved a fleeting moment of solitude to gather my thoughts before confronting him. Yet, the moment I crossed the threshold, an unsettling certainty washed over me. This would not end well. A solitary red rose rested on my desk, its petals glistening with the remnants of morning dew, whispering secrets of the dawn. No note. No explanation provided. A silent message lingered in the air, poised and expectant, urging me to break the stillness with my response. The rose lingered in the air, fragile yet commanding attention with an undeniable allure. My fingers lingered just above its delicate petals, yet I refrained from making contact. A chilling realization washed over me, I knew exactly who had left it behind. I felt it deep within me, a truth that needed no words to reveal itself. I drew in a sharp breath, placing my bag on the ground before settling into my seat. That morning, my office pulsed with an unfamiliar energy, thick with an unnameable tension that hung in the air. The familiar routine that once wrapped around me like a warm blanket now trembled, leaving me teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Daniel stood at the edge of the world, a name whispered in the winds of fate, beckoning him toward an uncertain destiny. The echoes of his words from the night before reverberated in my mind, haunting me with their intensity. Have you ever paused to ponder your own existence? What is it that you desire? For countless years, I clung to the belief that I required nothing beyond what was already mine. The essence of my freedom, the pursuit of my ambitions, the sanctuary of my meticulously crafted solitude. And yet, here I stood, transfixed by a solitary rose, as a deep, unfamiliar sensation began to awaken within me. The sound of a familiar knock at my office door jolted me from my reverie, pulling me back to the present moment. The dawn broke, casting a soft glow across the horizon. His voice enveloped the air, a steady warmth that wrapped around those who listened. I turned, and there he stood, Daniel framed in the doorway, his expression a mystery that sent a shiver down my spine. "Morning," I whispered, my voice barely breaking the silence, softer than I had meant it to be. As he crossed the threshold, the door clicked shut with a finality that echoed in the stillness. "Have you received the gift I sent?" My gaze darted back to the rose. I did. He tilted his head ever so slightly, a subtle movement that hinted at the weight of unspoken thoughts swirling in the air. As I exhaled slowly, a sense of calm washed over me, my hands coming to rest in my lap. "I find myself at a loss for words, Daniel. What is it that you truly want to hear from me?" He offered a faint smile, shifting to take a seat directly across from me. "Nothing is expected from you, Victoria. I yearn to uncover the thoughts swirling within your mind." A moment of uncertainty gripped me. Last night, it felt as if the very foundations of my world shifted beneath me. For 2 decades, you have been my leader, my confidant, and in an instant, you're urging me to perceive you in an entirely new light. He nodded, his gaze unwavering, a silent promise hanging in the air. Could that truly be considered a terrible thing? I parted my lips to speak, yet silence enveloped me. The stark reality was that I was utterly lost in uncertainty. Daniel leaned in, his elbows digging into his knees, a sense of anticipation hanging in the air. "I have no intention of putting you in an awkward position, Victoria. That is the very last thing I could ever desire. Yet, I cannot mask the truth of my emotions any longer. It was a definitive end, a closing chapter that echoed with finality." I gulped, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "What in the world is this, Daniel? What in the world is this, Daniel? What is it that you seek from me?" His expression melted into something tender. "Fate. An opportunity awaits, a moment to uncover what might lie beneath the surface. If only, just perhaps, you could experience the same emotions." My gaze drifted, captivated by the sprawling cityscape that lay beneath me. The skyline unfurled before me, a blend of the known and the unknown, pulsating with untold possibilities that beckoned from the shadows. Was it truly possible for me to take this leap? Was I willing to gamble everything? "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling, barely escaping my lips. "I'm not sure I can alter the way I perceive you." Daniel's expression held no trace of disappointment. He exuded an air of patience, a deep well of understanding in his gaze. Then let it flow naturally, allow it to unfold in its own time. I spun around to face him, my fingers intertwining in a nervous dance. "And if it doesn't?" He smiled, a smile that radiated authenticity and warmth. "Then I will remain, unwavering through it all." I let out a breath, a flicker of relief washing over me as the heaviness in my chest began to ease. "That promise teeters on the edge of peril, Daniel." His eyes sparkled with mischief, as if daring me to take the plunge. Throughout the day, the conversation lingered in my thoughts, haunting me like a shadow that refused to fade. I braced myself for the inevitable awkwardness, the tension hanging thick in the air. Yet they were not. Daniel pressed on, his demeanor unaltered, as if the world around him remained untouched by the storm brewing beneath the surface. He held back, He stood firm, unwavering in his presence, and yet it coursed through me. Each time he strode past my office, a shiver of anticipation coursed through me. Each time our gazes locked across the conference table, an electric tension filled the air. Each time he spoke my name, his voice dipped into a softer cadence, wrapping around the syllables like a warm embrace. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself utterly drained, not from the demands of the day, but from the relentless storm of my own thoughts swirling within me. Just as I was about to step out, my phone vibrated, drawing my attention with an unexpected message. "Daniel, it's time for dinner. Only dinner. There's no weight on your shoulders. What will you choose to reveal?" My thumb lingered in the air, suspended above the screen. As uncertainty gripped me, I could refuse. I could maintain the status quo, where everything felt secure and familiar. Or I could plunge into the abyss of uncertainty. My heart raced wildly as my fingers danced across the keyboard, crafting my response. Where am I? And what time is it? The restaurant lay in a hushed stillness, shadows dancing in the dim light as whispers of conversation wove through the air like a delicate tapestry. I lingered at the table, my fingers curling around the stem of my wine glass, captivated by the dance of the candlelight as it flickered and swayed. Daniel sat across from me, exuding an air of calm, his unwavering gaze piercing through the silence. Though a storm of anxiety brewed within him, his exterior remained a mask of calm. Yet I truly was. The whole day had been a battle within myself, each moment a struggle to convince my mind to turn back and abandon the idea of showing up. And yet, here I sat, facing the man who had been my boss for 2 decades, now perceiving him through a lens I had never dared to look through before.
Thank you for saying yes," Daniel said, his voice enveloping her like a comforting embrace.
A faint smile tugged at the corners of my lips. I nearly let it slip away. He let out a low, rumbling chuckle that echoed in the stillness around him. I had a feeling. I exhaled slowly, my body shifting restlessly in the confines of my seat. "I'm at a loss with this, Daniel. Suddenly, the way I see you has shifted, and I can't quite grasp how it happened." He nodded slowly, the glass trembling slightly in his hand as he brought it to his lips, savoring the moment with each deliberate sip. "I'm not requesting that of you. All I craved was for tonight to unfold without complications. 2 souls gathered around a flickering candle, sharing a meal that held the promise of secrets and unspoken words." I scrutinized him intently. He spoke as if it were the easiest thing in the world. Yet everything about this seemed anything but simple to me. As the night deepened, an unexpected calm began to envelop me. We delved into the depths of our work, reminiscing about tales from days gone by, sharing whimsical anecdotes that sparked laughter and ignited joy within me. It felt as if it was meant to be. At one moment, Daniel reclined in his chair, his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "I missed this," he murmured, a hint of longing in his voice. I raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. What had I overlooked? "Witnessing you in this state, in the midst of the bustling office, you carry the weight of responsibility on your shoulders, your serious demeanor a shield against the chaos around you. Every task, every detail, meticulously managed as you ensure that everything and everyone is taken care of. Yet, in this moment, it's only you standing here." My eyes widened, the unexpected weight of his words striking me like a bolt from the blue. I couldn't recall the last time someone had gazed at me with such intensity, truly seeing me for who I was. A sudden flutter ignited in my chest, an unfamiliar sensation that caught me off guard. After dinner, we stepped outside, the cool night air enveloping us like a whispered secret. Just as I was reaching for my phone to summon a cab, Daniel's voice cut through the air. "Allow me to take you home." My heart raced as uncertainty gripped me. A boundary loomed before me, a line etched in the air that whispered of consequences I dared not imagine. After a heartbeat of hesitation, I finally nodded. The drive unfolded in a hushed serenity, a cocoon of comfort enveloping the journey. As we approached my house, a whirlwind of thoughts engulfed me. As the engine fell silent and the car settled into stillness, I turned to him, my mind racing to find the words that would capture the moment. Daniel stood at the edge of the world, the weight of his name echoing in the silence around him. He reached over, his fingers brushing against mine with a tenderness that sent a shiver down my spine. His touch radiated warmth, a steady presence that enveloped her. Silence hung heavy in the air, a palpable tension between them. "You don't have to say anything, Edlin," she whispered, her voice barely breaking through the stillness. I swallowed hard. "Yet, I truly do. I find myself lost, unsure of the path ahead. I'm not sure I can provide what you seek." His thumb glided softly across my fingers, sending a shiver of anticipation through me. "Then let us take our time. Let's navigate this journey one step at a time." I released a trembling breath, my heart racing wildly in my chest. "It seems effortless when you put it that way." His lips curled into a smile, a flicker of warmth igniting in the depths of his eyes. For that very reason, in that moment, I focused on him. Truly focused. For the very first time, I allowed myself to ponder the possibilities. What if everything you believed was turned upside down? What if the world you knew was just a facade, hiding secrets that could shatter your reality? What if the choices you made led you down a path you never expected? The possibilities are endless, and the answers might change everything. Perhaps this was not the conclusion of a journey. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the dawn of something extraordinary. I tightened my grip on his hand for a fleeting moment, before reluctantly letting go, my fingers brushing against the cool metal of the door handle. As the stars twinkled in the vast night sky, she whispered softly, "Good night, Daniel." The words hung in the air, a tender promise wrapped in the cool embrace of twilight. His gaze lingered on me, unwavering and filled with an intensity that seemed to stretch time itself. As the shadows deepened and the world outside fell silent, a soft whisper lingered in the air. "Good night, Edlin." The words hung like a promise, wrapping around the stillness of the night. As I emerged into the cool evening air and approached my front door, the warmth of his touch clung to my skin like a haunting memory, refusing to fade away. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a new sensation coursed through me, awakening emotions long buried: hope,